Today on CNS, we look at one local school's fight to stay alive. We'll also meet an octogenarian who, in one day, does something most of us won't do in a lifetime. And later, we'll showcase some uniquely Bay Area stories. But first, the November election saw California and 2 other states ban same-sex marriages. Already, courts in California and Iowa are hearing appeals. It's a hot-button issue playing out in the courts and also in the personal lives of the couples themselves.
Pamela and Shauna got married last June.
The pride and the excitement and the enjoyment of that very simple thing of being treated fairly and equally and being one of all other American citizens is really profound.
But that was before California voters banned same-sex marriages by passing Prop 8 in November. Now, 20,000 same-sex couples are worried, uncertain, and outraged, and they aren't the only ones.
Poof, there was this absolutely amazing outpouring of grassroots support. A lot of young people came in, and to see how many people came out to really voice their disappointment, how upset they were that this initiative passed, really gave us this jolt of like, well, we can't stop now.
It is not yes we can, it is yes we will. Yes.
On November 15, nationwide protests organized through the internet took place in many cities. Leaders call it losing forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward.
Don't wait for leaders to tell you what to do. Show up and do some work.
Joelle Gomez is a writer and an activist for gay rights. She and her partner were among the couples who rushed to marry just before the election.
Whatever the Supreme Court does, it's really what our community does, to stick together and say, we won't settle for anything less than civil rights for all.
The Supreme Court's decision is expected in March. Meanwhile, activists from all over the nation are sending their message through a campaign called Protest a Postcard.
Dear President-elect Obama, please ask Congress to repeal the Defense of Marriage Act and Don't Ask, Don't Tell. It's important to our family and to our society as a whole.
This is Alba Mora for CNS News.
A message of a different sort was heard loud and clear this November in Alameda. Welcome home cheers greeted 65 Marine reservists as they returned from Iraq. Amidst the excitement and the tears of joy, these Marines take a moment to talk about returning to their civilian lives.
Hard work's begun! Mission complete! Fall out to your families!
For Marines arriving home from a 7-month tour in Iraq, it was a hero's welcome. 17 family members awaited Corporal Garrett Karen, returning from his first deployment.
You look good, Garrett.
22-year-old Karen said he hoped to get back to life in the States as he remembered it.
I'm just really looking forward to do like normal stuff, going back to school, and I just bought a Harley. I pick it up tomorrow. I'm really excited to ride it.
But while Karen and his company were fighting for control of Fallujah, the nation's leaders were fighting to stave off a devastating economic recession. In California, the jobless rate soared to 7.7%, a 12-year high. Some Marines may put off re-entering the workforce. Karen, for one, plans to enroll in Southern Utah University.
If he was out, pounding the pavement looking for a job, I think it might affect him. But because he's going to school, it's going to be a little different for him.
Other reservists may opt for a career in the military.
A couple of guys are going to probably want to stick around on orders, or want to augment to the active duty forces. We have foreclosures, folks selling homes, that type of thing. I mean, that puts a burden on you.
Typically, bad news for the economy means good news for the military. The Pentagon reports 2008 has been its strongest recruiting year in 4 years. Job security and benefits are among the main draws.
So though we're protecting the nation, the government definitely is taking care of us on this one.
But above all else, the Marines are just grateful to be home.
When he was in Iraq, it stopped being about anyone's beliefs of what we're doing and if we're over there for the right reasons. And it was all about making sure that they all came back, and they all came back safe.
And as of December, there are no plans for these Marines to return to Iraq anytime soon. This is Anna Bloom for CNS News.
500 American colleges offer classes exploring the cultures of people of color. Yet as those institutions face budget cuts, these programs face cuts too. But at one university, ethnic studies is not only surviving, it's celebrating a big anniversary.
Dr. Ramona Tasco is reliving one of the most important times in her life.
I found my voice at San Francisco State when I learned how to shout, "On strike, shut it down."
On strike, shut it down! On strike, shut it down! In 1968, those words became the call to action for what became the longest campus strike in the nation's history. Segregated education became illegal in 1964, but 4 years later, students protested that there was still little diversity. Today, students here honor the strike that led to the first College of Ethnic Studies in the country.
There was an attempt to lift up out of its oppressive state the culture that we had assimilated from. And it felt comfortable, it was natural, and in short order I went from my long flowing hair to this huge 8-inch afro.
40 years ago, most people didn't know that our education was primarily upper middle class, affluent, Anglo-American education.
San Francisco State is still the only American university with a College of Ethnic Studies. 47% of its bachelor degrees are earned by members of underrepresented minorities.
I'm half black, half white. I thought I knew everything from both sides of the spectrum, but I just learned so much.
This school is so diverse. That's what makes it so special. That's what makes it so interesting for people to come and study here.
You make your bed odd, you have to line it. What does that mean?
Multiculturalism, multi-ethnicity is something that we can now lift up as a positive in America.
40 years after the strike, the college serves 6,000 students a semester, with classes in 5 different cultures.
Basically, we're saying that education should answer questions that a community would ask.
This is Amanda Martinez for CNS News.
As immigration raids increase, the government is not just deporting undocumented immigrants, it's deporting parents. Their American-born children number in the hundreds of thousands, and they are U.S. citizens who are often left behind. Here's the story of one such teen and his life on the run.
15-year-old Fortino was born in Oakland. His father was deported to Mexico in August, but has since come back north. Now the family is hiding and has stayed in 3 different places in the last 4 months.
Sometimes it's me sleeping in the living room couch with my uncle's house, and sometimes it's probably the floor.
One place he finds stability is at school.
I think there's lots of people like Fortino. You know, when we do activities where we're asking students, do they know somebody who doesn't have documentation? And, 90% of the class raises their hand.
Today, his teacher is offering the class an opportunity.
Take pictures of all the things in your life that make you happy.
For Fortino, happiness means this house where his family used to live.
I grew up here. I was at a stable home where I could be calm, and for me to not have that space where I can be with my family, be safe. That place just isn't there for me anymore.
Even though Fortino's a citizen himself and cannot be deported, he says he fears immigration officers can come for his parents during one of the raids in his neighborhood.
I could be just walking down the street, be picked up by a van, and get interrogated. They could have been where's your dad at? Where's your mom at? Where do you live at?
The government is deporting people at the rate of 356,000 per year, 3 times the rate in 2001. Immigration lawyers say the threat of deportation is tearing families apart.
When they had these raids, then school attendance would go down. Mothers were afraid to take their kids to school. It has a damaging effect on our society.
In late October, Fortino joined over 400 young people in a protest against immigration raids in their neighborhoods.
I've been through that situation, and I want to make sure that no one goes to that situation again.
You are my son. In the meantime, Fortino continues to document his life, hoping that one day his pictures will be of his family, together and safe. This is Betty Bastidas for CNS News.
Students at the Hatland Center in San Pablo are learning skills most of us take for granted, life skills that will help them live independently. And now, after 36 years, the center has a chance to gain its own independence.
Like many 18-year-olds, Bianca Samaniego is learning how to live on her own for the first time.
Honestly, I think it's taught me to take a little more respect to my mom, because now I see sometimes how much cleaning and cooking can take out of you.
With only minimal light perception in her right eye, Bianca has been legally blind since birth. In July, she moved from her parents' home in San Diego to the Hatland Center for the Blind in San Pablo.
I want every student who comes through here to become as independent as he or she possibly can.
To achieve that goal, students receive up to a year of one-on-one training in skills such as mobility, personal finance, and cooking.
And you're going to find the contact girl with the plate.
Samir Shaibi is a living skills teacher. He lost his eyesight gradually as a young adult from a degenerative eye disease. A graduate of the program, he has no doubt it works for students like Bianca.
She's actually walking the walk and you know, making her own meals and having fun doing it, and not afraid to get in there and try.
But as the students gain independence, the center has been unable to do the same. As renters in this aging complex, they struggle with cramped space and limited control. But there may be a solution. In September, the city of El Cerrito approved $100,000 to help develop plans for a new center on this site near much-needed transit.
They'll now have this opportunity to, first of all, design their space, and then secondly, actually be an owner.
We're no longer a sleepy nonprofit. You know, we're really taking the bull by the horns, and we're going to make this happen.
It will take about 4 years and $26 million to complete the new center. By then, Bianca plans to have finished college and made her own place in the world.
I can say that I can get to that place on my own and don't have to rely on somebody else to take me there.
This is Matt Durning for CNS News.
The future of students at another school isn't so clear. The fight to save El Cerrito's Castro Elementary is dividing the community and the school board. At the heart of the matter is the future of one unique program.
Castro Elementary School in El Cerrito has a 92% attendance rate. Its student test scores exceed the state average.
Just raise your hand if you can name one. An organism that's eaten by a lot of other organisms.
And it integrates about 30 children with disabilities into classrooms.
We wanted our daughter to have a regular childhood, and Castro has given that and much more.
Mine Tenor-Cal's 7-year-old daughter attends Castro. She was diagnosed with broad-spectrum autism.
Basically, there is an understanding that everybody's different, everybody has different needs. I thought I was a compassionate person until I saw how those children help one another at Castro.
You have your baby fish, okay, and what are they going down to?
Despite its success, Castro is likely to be shut down in June. Last year, school board members voted 3-2 to replace Castro Elementary with a middle school. But newly elected school board member Antonio Medrano wants Castro to stay open.
I don't think Castro should be touched. It's one of the best programs in West County, in Contra Costa County. We can't destroy it.
After the November election, the dynamics of the school board changed, giving Castro's parents and children a reason for hope. If Castro Elementary School were to close, what would
It's not going to close. We have the votes to say no.
School board member Charles Ramsey voted for the closure and says it won't be that simple.
They have a third vote, they can stop it. They got to come up with a balanced budget.
The board still needs $300,000 to keep the school open and to find another site for the middle school. The remaining uncertainty has parents worried.
I just don't find a school that can do what Castro is doing.
The school board has until February 10th to make a final closure decision. This is Nigeri Eaton for CNS News.
At another local school, students are taking to the airwaves and learning more than the usual lessons. Every morning, World One is on the air.
KECG, your broadcast service of West Contra Costa Unified School District.
At El Cerrito High School, a radio broadcast class offers students a new way to look at media.
For them to flip the lens, as it were,
To hear their voices for the first time is staggering. They don't even know what they sound like.
All week this week is the canned food drive. We're sitting here in this little box. People can hear us out on the Bay Bridge. It's like, whoa, how'd that happen?
Each morning, the students control the boards on Bay Area's World One radio. Corey Mason encourages them to air what they like.
My full opinion basically talks about body image. It talks about supermodels and how they're taller and skinnier. And I'm not that tall and I'm not that skinny. We get our opinions heard. We get the type of music that we want to be played heard. Our class is very diverse, so it gets a chance for us to hear what they're listening to.
Much of the radio program's money comes from the County Office of Education. But recent state budget cuts could potentially limit this vital source of funding.
As goes the state, so go the county, and so go the local school districts. This school site's very committed to expanding the offerings of electives. The tide is against that.
Soon to come are more bake sales, sponsors, and fundraising, with one goal in mind: training young minds to be active in society.
A cynicism slipped deeply into the meta-consciousness of America's youth. And I believe that can be flipped like jujitsu. And I think maybe we're right on the, on the cusp.
We're externalizing our ability to be a medium.
I think he understands us really well, and he's not afraid to get down and talk to us.
Mason is hopeful he can go on inspiring students, even if budget cuts become a reality.
All right, let's make the world a better place, one step at a time.
This is Sweta Vohr for CNS News.
You may have noticed something unusual in Bay Area skies since November. It's not a bird, it's not a plane, and it's not even a blimp.
For 70 years, giant airships known as Zeppelins have been absent from North American skies. That recently changed when an entrepreneurial couple from Silicon Valley teamed up with NASA to fly the first Zeppelin in America since 1937.
It's just wonderful to see. We used to call them gentle giants that roam the sky because they're so quiet.
Husband and wife team Brian and Alex Hall decided to start an airship tourism business in the Bay Area after riding in a Zeppelin in Germany.
I came back from that and I said, well, I didn't say eureka, but I did say this is it. We have to do this business.
But they needed somewhere to park the 246-foot Zeppelin, so they turned to a place designed 75 years ago exactly for that purpose, Moffett Field in Mountain View.
First airship to come here was 1933, which was the Macon. The big hangar that you see was built in 1930, especially for the Macon Zeppelin.
The 800-foot-long Macon was only at Moffett Field for 16 months before crashing into the Pacific. Then, in 1937, the Hindenburg caught on fire, killing 35 people and ending the era of airship travel. The new Zeppelin is much more advanced than its predecessors.
It's kind of the giggle factor, like, it's going to explode. Well, no, it's not. You take the technology and you fast forward it 70 years. Instead of using fabric, we're using Kevlar. Instead of using hydrogen, we're using helium. This isn't your grandfather's airship.
NASA scientists at Moffett Field will use the Zeppelin for research.
That was a win-win for us. They came out here, they allow us to leverage our science, they get to do their tourism business.
The flight characteristics of the Zeppelin, the very slow flight, the very stable platform, means that we can observe looking down at the ground with detectors, things like the salt ponds in the bay.
Of course, the Zeppelin's primary purpose is tourism, at $500 a ticket.
I asked her what she wanted for her birthday, and she just pointed up in the air. I kind of knew what she was talking about.
It's so beautiful looking down and seeing all the swimming pools, the Bay Area.
At the end of the day, the Zeppelin returns to Moffett Field, home to the giant Zeppelin once again. This is Christina Salerno for CNS News.
Running to stay fit and running as sport are common enough. But for one man, passion for the run is anything but ordinary.
Nearly 40,000 runners from all over the world invaded the Big Apple this fall to run the New York Marathon. One of them was George French.
I am 80 years old, which seems to attract attention for some silly reason.
It took French 7 hours to run the 26 miles, but he made it.
To finish it and be feeling good, that's a reward in itself.
For French, every race starts at home. While the city is asleep, He is up and ready to train, a sometimes painful routine.
When I go out the door at 2 o'clock or 2:30 in the morning, and it's cold, my insteps are in pain from arthritis.
He often runs up to 11 miles from his quiet neighborhood in the Richmond Hills to the normally bustling San Pablo Avenue.
Many of the people I work with consider me certifiably insane. Why would I do this? It's crazy. But it's not crazy.
It's crazy because of the schedule. You know, how many people can get up at 2 a.m. every night and run 5 to 11 miles?
Good morning. French was a sportsman from a young age. At 31, he rode his bike from New Jersey to California. But 3,000 miles was enough, and with no exercise, his weight ballooned to 230 pounds. His doctor warned him he had to change.
And I didn't like the sound of that, and so I started running.
Since then, French has run over 40 marathons, and he plans to run some more.
It would be kind of fun to be the oldest guy who's ever finished a New York Marathon. I'll go to the next marathon and see how things will look from there.
This is Bagasi Kura for CNS News.
They're called artificial limbs, but as one man shows us, there's nothing artificial about the very real process of creating new body parts for amputees.
Michael Cote makes arms and legs for people who need them. He is part technician, part craftsman.
We can't go out back and pick a size 5 leg off the shelf.
In his Oakland clinic, Cote carries on a time-honored process. First casting his patient's remaining limb, then forming a plastic socket that will fit the unique contours of his patient's body.
You could do things in a computer, but it's not quite the same as being able to run your hand over the model and make sure that all of the shapes are organic enough to be comfortable.
Early artificial limbs were built by blacksmiths, armor makers, and woodworkers. And although the profession has evolved with technology, it still requires a hands-on approach. Thomas Jakobic lost his legs in a skiing accident in 1990. Over the years, he has seen several prosthetists.
You have to trust that person, and they have to trust you. The bottom line is, can they make my legs, and can they make my legs work better?
Today, there are fewer than 3,000 certified prosthetists in the U.S., and nearly a quarter are expected to retire in the next decade. Meanwhile, the need is growing. Each year, 150,000 Americans become amputees. Most are victims of vascular disease and diabetes. Cote was born with cerebral palsy. As a child, he wore leg braces to help him walk.
I have lived all my life with a disability, so I do understand what living with a disability is like.
You want to push it on from the bottom.
And as the number of disease-related amputations increases, more people will come to rely on professionals like Cote.
You're effectively fitting them with a tool that helps them to replace a missing part of their body.
This is Shalise Haas for CNS News.
And finally, a holiday train exhibit is on display at the San Francisco Conservatory of Flowers. It features some unusual miniature buildings. The landmarks are recognizable, and you'll probably recognize the materials they're made of.
Well, let's look at some other materials. If we actually hollowed these out and then strung a cable through it and just had these make up the whole cable span, that would be pretty great.
When San Francisco's Conservatory of Flowers needed models of local landmarks for their holiday train exhibit, they turned to a San Francisco design and fabrication company called Figure Plant. The conservatory asked Figure Plant to get creative with their green theme.
It became obvious that reusing objects was going to be the best way to showcase creativity through recycling. We've used computer keys, mahjong tiles, circuit boards.
We've created quoit tower out of Venetian blinds and old rulers and measuring tapes.
We knew that we were going to use red material, like all over the bridge. Hair curlers, barrel full of monkeys pieces. We have a fire alarm. And this
The project's creative freedom was a perfect fit for Figure Plant's builders, who are all artists outside of this job as well.
When people ask you to make something, they don't usually say, go ahead and make it however you see fit. Oh, look at that.
Working with all these materials, like, it's opened my mind a lot. That recycling is not just about throwing something in a bin. You can actually, like, bring it into your life and see things differently.
After a month and a half of construction, Figure Plant brought the 11 buildings to the conservatory, where they joined 3 trains and a miniature landscape of plants.
Oh my God. Wow. We've worked on them for so long in a big empty shop. It's a great combination of natural elements and totally man-made, basically garbage. And I think that contrast is a really powerful thing. I think that's why people like it so much.
The Golden Gate Express exhibit will run through April 19, 2009 at the Conservatory of Flowers. This is Clare Major for CNS News.
That's it for today's stories. Here's a preview of the stories we're working on for next time. The Buffalo and Golden Gate Park are Bay Area treasures, but they may not be there for long. Samson Rainey takes a trip out to the park to get the story.
Now, this herd of females are almost at the end of their calf rearing years.
Bringing in a bull would only cost about $1,000, but zoo officials say it means more time, more money, and more staff to monitor the herd.
There's strong public support for keeping them here. The buffalo, supporters say, are too important to San Franciscans to let them die off.
The public turns out in great numbers every year for this benefit art show and sale to see fine works of art, ceramics, and furniture. Reporter Linnea Edmeier visits the exhibit, The Artist, and takes us inside their unusual studios. Economic hard times find everyone searching for a bit more cash. Christine Wong examines one solution.
We probably have seen 15 to 20% increase in customers. They look more like your middle class, people on their way to work in the morning.
Recyclers can make up to $75 a day.
Jobs are not available. That's why we're here.
But the increase in recyclers is making it more difficult for those who do this to survive.
Too many strikes. Strike out.
That's it for CNS News. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.